screening. This one is about Drupal 9 compatibility fixes. Are they really automated? You hear some talk that they're automated now and that it's great. From Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 is by far the easiest Drupal upgrade to date. I mean, it lives up to the hype in that regard. It's not completely painless, but it is much, much easier than upgrading from Drupal 6 to 7 or 7 to 8 or from 7 directly to 9, all of which are pretty large scale undertaking. You've got to actually, you can't just upgrade all of the content from the old thing to the new thing. And it's very similar process to migrating content from a completely different CMS into Drupal, the same migrate process that you would use if your client had a WordPress site that they wanted to see in Drupal or some other, some other web platform that you wanted to migrate the content into Drupal. So that's really like a database extract, transform, and load operation, a migrate place upgrade. It's actually like relatively simple. And there are a few gotchas, but there's definitely some tools in place to make those gotchas a little bit less annoying. And the community has put a lot of work in to make this a lot easier. But as you'll see, it's not 100% yet. I think it'll be much better when we all upgrade from Drupal 9 to Drupal 10. But let's take a look at the first slide. Here's our agenda. And Drupal 8, everybody loves it. What's wrong with it? Why do we have to even have a Drupal 9? You will find out. Then we're going to talk about some community supported tools, which exist to give you a little bit of a leg up in this process. And the project update bot, which actually is exactly what it sounds like. It's just software. It's just a little robot that goes around and finds projects and it finds the code that's going to prevent them from working when they get dragged over to Drupal 9, and it flags as much of that code as it can, and in some cases it even recommends exactly what code to replace it with, so you don't even need to know how to fix it. Like the project update bot will tell you. And that's not foolproof and you want to test it, but that already exists. Then we got a Deprecation. Gives us a little bit of a kind of an up to the minute reckoning of whatever their latest statistics are on the state of Drupal 9 readiness and how many contributed projects and the modules and themes and such. I think also projects can include profiles, but they track all that stuff and they figure out what percentage of them are all ready and what ones are not all ready. So that is the classic way of making something, like if the code's not ready, you can make a patch file. And we'll look at how that has historically been implemented on Drupal.org in particular. It's pretty universal in the open source software world to share patches. And this has been going on since the days of paper tape with holes punched in it. But I think that's actually where they but we'll talk about how specifically how that gets used in the Drupal context, because the Drupal community has its own platform that we use for collaboration and assigning credit to different people for contributing. And then we're going to look at the composer patches catch 22. Now this is the whole reason for this talk, actually. There's adequate documentation online for every step up until here, but I found completely undocumented, but certainly underdocumented. It's a brand new thing that's just been added to the Drupal.org platform, and it's something that I only found out about it by hanging out in the Drupal 9 readiness channel on Drupal Slack, and also because I was hanging out there because I needed to know, right? I hit a wall in my own personal Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 upgrade project that I just completed. So the workaround, issue forks. It's a new thing, and I can sort of demonstrate it a little bit, but I won't necessarily be able to take an entire patch, like take you through the entire process. But I can show you some of the stuff on the web. Then we're going to talk about the prerequisites, and then we'll talk about the process in more detail. And the last step, I tacked this one on the end because it's part of the process. But what happened to me was, of these issue forks. And then I started to find that some of them would not apply in the Drupal 9 project because they lacked a valid composer.json. And so I had to figure out how to generate my own and make my issue fork something that Composer could actually install. So that's the overview. I hope everybody is ready. Buckle your seatbelts, ready for the ride. Drupal 8 and Drupal 8 is built on top of Symfony 3. Before that, Drupal was just its own sort of special sauce, you know, and it kind of got cobbled together over the years, and always kind of with backward compatibility as much as they could preserve it, with all this crazy kind of spaghetti code from the early days of, like, you know, pre-Drupal 4 and 5. It was just kind of the Wild West. Even the language that it was written in, PHP, was not really mature at that time. A lot of the best practices that we observed really available for our use at that time. And even when PHP became an object-oriented language, initially using the object-oriented features was not going to be the most efficient way to use your CPU cycles. You might want to code in the older style just so your program would run faster. So as a result, Drupal, right up until Drupal 7, became, it was optimized. It wasn't just like completely random why they craziness, but it was definitely, it didn't always follow best practices, and as a result it was very painful to upgrade often from one version of Drupal to the next. In particular, people had a lot of trouble with going from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, and Drupal 7 was a huge improvement, and really was a great success. A lot of companies started using it, but they started thinking along the spread Drupal adoption, and all of these companies and government agencies and you know, educational institutions and all these Drupal sites just blooming everywhere. And the maintainers started to think, well, how should we approach the next one so that we don't recreate the pain of that last upgrade that was so awful, and you know, our upgrades from one version to another really give us a bad name. So they picked this project called Symfony, and as you can see on the slide, it's Symfony with an F, so that you can find it when you go to Google it. So you don't use a PH. There is nothing phony about Symfony. It is fine to use it as an F in the middle, and it's a very stable and mature model view controller framework, and it has its own HTTP kernel, which is the part that Drupal really relies on the most. Drupal doesn't use all of the features of Symfony, but it really relies on the Symfony. Some of the core features of Drupal are provided by Symfony. Others are still provided by Drupal's special sauce, and they did a really good job with Drupal 8 of keeping their old hooks system around, so you can still use hooks and stuff, but you're using the new Twig templates, which are from Symfony. You're using the new routing. You're using a lot of new object-oriented best practices that come along with Symfony. And this is where you start to hear about concepts like dependency injection and stuff like that. knew so well, right? That was the old way of doing the code, and we switched to this new thing, and it sounds so much more complicated, and it hurts my head, and I don't want to know about dependency injection, and I don't want to have to learn, you know, all of these new classes and object-oriented things. But the trade-off is it's going to make it easier to upgrade, right? Because Symfony has a very, very planned out and scheduled release schedule. Version, it's you know, Symfony 3.4 goes into long-term support, and it doesn't ever get a 3.5, and 4.0 is out at that point, and that's the one they encourage you to migrate to, and that gets a patch release up to, you know, like it gets, sorry, patch releases, semantic versioning, you get 3 numbers. So there's the first number, which is Symfony 3, Symfony 4, Symfony 5. We haven't got a Symfony 6.0 or what is 5.0.1. That's like a patch release. Oh, 5.0.2, that's a patch. It's just fixing bugs, and it's not adding any functionality, and it's certainly not breaking any backward compatibility. Then that middle number, that O, what happens when that goes up? Oh, suddenly it's Symfony 4.1.0. Well, why did that middle number change? That's because of semantic versioning. That means that you added some features and functionality, and you added them any backward compatibility with people that were using the previous API. And as a result, each version of Symfony, as it comes out and goes through the initial release, through, you know, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, during that whole time, it's adding and adding and adding without taking anything away. And then the very last version that goes into long-term support takes all the stuff that's been added and all of the new features and all that stuff. And what they've done in the meantime is they marked for deprecation certain methods that are not going to be available, certain things that you're not going to be able to do in the next version. Because there's a new way, a better way. They don't just go away and leave you without a leg to stand on. They leave you with a path forward, and they say, okay, in the next version, we're going to do it this way. It's better for whatever reason that we've figured out, like we made these decisions for a reason. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more stable. It's going to be just easier to implement in one way or another. Kind of considerations that they may have in making their code better and better every time. And what they did is they marked a bunch of code for deprecation that's going to go away. So Drupal 8 is built on top of Symfony 3, and Symfony 3.4 long-term support ends really soon, right? Active support already ended about a year ago, November 1st, 2020. And security support is, so they're not even really actively supporting it. If new security vulnerabilities are found in the old version Symfony 3, they will not get a patch from the Symfony team. You will not get a security alert issued that says your site may have an exploit, a vulnerability, right? That's vulnerable to some bad actor coming and taking over your site, or reading private things on your site that they're not supposed to have access to, or writing or erasing things that they shouldn't be able to get access to. Credit card numbers, or, you know, spamming your entire contact list with their spam, and, you know, getting you in trouble with everybody, you know. So that said, we have known for a long time that the active support was going to end on November 1st. So Drupal has been planning ahead, and you'll see in a minute what we've done for that. They built Drupal 9 on the next version of Symfony, Symfony 4, and that's going to be good. So we're going to have 2 more years after we all upgrade to Drupal 9 before Drupal 10 has to come out. And it has to come out because you can't support Drupal if it's built on open source code that you don't control, that your software team in your organization has no say in whether or not it's supported or whatever. So that's why it's a trade-off, right? You get to have these easier upgrades because everything is planned out for you a little bit better, and the upgrades go more smoothly from one trade-off is you've got to go through everything that you've written for Drupal 8 that uses Symfony 3 APIs, and you've got to make sure that all the deprecated APIs that won't work in Symfony 4 get pulled out and replaced with something else. Or in some cases, maybe the code that has those deprecated APIs in it isn't something that you need to migrate to your Drupal 9 site. You can get by without a certain module, there's a different one or whatever. And still coming out with new versions. It hasn't come to 5.4 yet. So there isn't a long-term support version of Symfony 5. And that's the one that we're essentially, I guess, sorry, Drupal 8 is built on Symfony 3. Drupal 9 is built on Symfony 4. And Drupal 10, they've already started working on it because they've already got Symfony 5 to work with, but they won't be able to really release a stable Drupal 10 until Symfony 5 is in long-term support now. So that is why everything is happening on this schedule, right? It's happening because it makes it easier for us to upgrade, but the trade-off is we got to get rid of the deprecated code that won't work with the previous version. So we've seen this coming for a few years now, actually. And a lot of us, myself included, I have been hearing people talk about Drupal 9 for years, and I have continued to work in Drupal. The funny thing is that Drupal 8 has to end when Symfony 3 ends, but Drupal 7 is going to continue for a little bit longer because it's not built on anybody else's code. So Drupal has the ability to say, well, we'll support this for a little bit longer. And they did extend that due to COVID and other mitigating factors, but they can't do it for Drupal 8. And that's why we've been working on these community supported Drupal 9 upgrade tools. Static analysis. Screening, you know that static analysis is one of my favorite things to talk about. I just love the idea that you can have a little robotic friend that you can just run that analyzes your code. You don't even need to run the code, right? That's what static analysis means. You're not running the code. You don't have to bootstrap Drupal. It's just looking at your actual code and analyzing it based on patterns of things that are supposed to be indented or things that are supposed to have, there's a big that it'll catch that you may have an error. Now, some of these errors are going to be they stop your code from running. So you're going to know, and you're going to have to fix it anyway to get the program to run at all. Some of them are more of the category of stylistic things or whatever, things that are going to be helpful to other developers when they come along and look at your code. But in the case of Drupal 9, right, and the Drupal 8 deprecations, you're going to run these things code that won't work anymore in Drupal 9. It's already been deprecated. You've been encouraged to make your Drupal 8 module not use this code and do it in the new way, which will work with both Drupal 8 and Drupal 9, right? But if you haven't done it yet, and your module or your theme or whatever still has some of this old stuff in it, there's tools that you can run against it that will basically, it doesn't catch everything, but it flags a lot of the more common errors, and it makes the whole job of upgrading a lot easier. So there's utility. And out of the two of them, I'm just going to see if I can bring something else to the front here on my screen. And there's the upgrade status project page. So it's drupal.org project upgrade status. And you use it to prepare for Drupal 9. This is where you come to figure out how to install it. And this is what it looks like when you run it. I guess that's kind of crazy. I can zoom in. So, gather data. Do your percentage of how compatible you are. It tells you whether your environment is compatible, like you need to have a newer version of Drupal core before you can upgrade, or you need a different version of PHP, or there's a different problem with your MySQL or Apache or Drush. And then it starts to list all of the projects It's like, oh, these are not even installed. Well, just remove them. Why would we even need them? These have an update. Even if it's not fully Drupal 9 compatible yet, it might be closer than the one you're using. Upgrade that too. So they really want you, they're going to guide you to get the latest version of Drupal 8.9 point whatever with the latest version. Well, it's not the latest version of PHP, but the latest Drupal 9 compatible version of PHP. Different things that are cutoffs that work with Drupal 8 that don't work with Drupal 9. It'll detect a lot of those different things. Oh, it's like, okay, this is a custom project. We can't figure out the status without scanning the source code. So you check this box, and then down at the bottom, you say run the scan selected, right? And then it'll also show you if there are open source projects that are hosted on Drupal.org, but they maybe don't have, you're going to have to go back to their issue queue. And that's what module. It's the part where you have to collaborate with maintainers to get it to be fully Drupal 9 compatible. So I'm going to minimize that. And this, by the way, is the repo for Drupal check, which is it's a command line utility, which is what the upgrade status module is built on under the hood. So this is written actually by our esteemed colleague, Matt Glamman, who is a real Drupal rock star. But he's best known these days for working on this sort of compatibility initiative and really doing a ton of work to create these automated tools that are going to go and do static analysis of your code so that you can find out where your deprecations are. So that's where you'll get that. I mean, you can, it comes in, I believe, when you install the graphical module that I already showed you. Some slides. If I can do it. I know I can do it. There we go. There's the Drupal check command line utility. And then we got two more that I wanted to talk about: upgrade rector and Drupal rector. So what's the difference? These are actually, this goes beyond just raising a flag and saying, hey, you're going to have to fix that. This is actually code. It comes from a company called Palantir, I believe. Is code that will fix code. It will just go and fix it. Or if it doesn't have sort of write permission, right? And it's gonna read it and it's gonna recommend a fix and tell you exactly what lines to fix. It'll generate a patch, in other words. We haven't quite gotten the patches, but you get the concept, right? Patches are generated, essentially, there's a ancient and venerable Unix utility called diff, and all that does is literally between two text files, plain text files, side by side, line by line. I compare line one. Are they the same? If they are the same, I leave it out of the diff. Are they different? Whoa, they're different. They go into the diff, one above the other, and you'll see exactly what the differences are. And in some cases, you get them highlighted in all pretty colors and stuff. It's great. So rector it goes beyond what that other module does, and it will actually, I'll show you upgrade rector over here. There's that Palantir is the company, and basically it detects the deprecated APIs, and in some cases it can even create automated code fix suggestions. It doesn't catch all the deprecations, or it can catch a lot of them that it doesn't know how to fix necessarily. Some things are just a little bit too complex. When you get into the realm of something that happens between Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 is constructor will have a different signature. It'll have different parameters. So instead of just passing the same services to it that you're going to have in this class when you instantiate it, it's going to have different ones. And in some cases, Drupal rector can flag that, but it may not be able to make all of the code totally compatible with the new way. But a lot of the stuff it catches is like, oh, you're using Drupal set message. Well, there's a new, you're going to have to use that instead, right? So this is what it looks like when it runs. It shows you, oh, okay, I generated a patch for myself. In this case, this is very humorous, but the screenshot shows Upgrade Rector generating, like analyzing its own code for problems and saying, oh, I need to fix myself. So that's very, very interesting. That's like a computer working on itself. And if you'll notice, oh, that's Drupal check again. I thought it was going to be Drupal Rector, but I put the wrong link. For goodness sake. Let me close this. Well, now I guess I got to hit the back button. I'm finding a way to make this talk be a whole hour long. So yeah, this is the real project. It's Rector, not Drupal check again. And this is, well, yeah, not exactly, but I feel like it's GitHub, Palantir Net, Drupal Rector is where they actually keep the code. PHP code. Then there's the Drupal Rector project, which has rule sets for fixing specifically Drupal deprecations and Drupal code. So that's what this project is about. And in fact, it will also now, once you upgrade to Drupal 9, it'll detect Drupal 10 deprecations already. So we got a real head start compared to last time. And this tells you exactly how to run it from the command line if you prefer to do it that way. But why not use, take advantage project, and it's going to get you a lot of the way there. Just between these two modules, the upgrade status and the upgrade rector, they really helped me a lot to generate the patches that I needed. In some cases where the modules just aren't ready, you're looking at their project pages and their issue queues and they're just not ready. So this will do it'll get you a lot of the way there. Then you got your automated project update bot, which even is maybe for you in the upgrade status module. And it says, you got to fix this stuff. You got to fix these lines of code. And then you go to the issue queue and you may find that someone's already been there. Your little friend, the project update bot. And it's got a Drupal.org user account, and that's a screenshot, a little bit of a zoom of the screenshot because you can't exactly tell these beautiful .ai slides how you want to crop things. That's the bio for your project update bot. And it says this account was created by the Drupal Association to help upgrade contributed projects to Drupal 9. Currently, it provides patches generated by Drupal Rector to remove Drupal 9 deprecations. And then it's got some advice for the project maintainers. It has fixed 739 issues in the past year, but it can't help orphaned projects. And this is the big problem, right? You've got so many people got involved, especially during the Drupal 7 era. And we lost some of those people. They didn't necessarily follow us along to Drupal 8, but actually we're just talking about people that did write Drupal 8 modules. So some of those people anyway wrote a module and maybe it's useful, maybe people are using it, but they're not around to apply the patch anymore. So if the project has no active maintainer, even if the update bot comes along and generates an automatic update, which is going to make it 100% Drupal 9 compatible, we'll see those in a little bit more detail in a moment. But first, let's look at the Drupal 9 deprecation status page. And here's some statistics. It's an analysis of all contributed projects. When I made this slide, the numbers may be a little different today, but there were already 6,370 projects that were explicitly Drupal 9 compatible. Now, they may still have bugs, but you can use them in a Drupal 9 project. 6 projects that are scanned by this are not Drupal 9 compatible. So I don't know how to compare that to the Drupal 7 to Drupal 8 compatibility, but I suspect we are ahead of where we were with that. A lot more of the projects are either fully compatible already or they're very close to compatible. As you'll see in these statistics, it says that out of the 4,286 projects that aren't only need changes in the info.yaml file or in composer.json, and I can show you what those are as well. Again, this is not quite set up for, I didn't actually plan to do a real live demo of the whole thing, but essentially every Drupal module's got like an info.yaml file, every Drupal theme has an info.yaml file, and there's just a line in there, we'll look at it in a little bit, that declares explicitly that you're Drupal 9 compatible. It hasn't been updated. Other than that, it's fine. But until you update that line, you can't install it in the Drupal 9 project. It's just, Drupal 9 won't even see it as available. And then there's another 1,407 that are covered by Rector automated patches. 643 completely covered, 764 partially covered. I didn't put the other number of whatever's left over in the, you know, needs manual review and the little black band that says no results. This as a pointer, but you can see that like it's mostly green. And if you include the ones that have only a one-liner to fix or are completely covered by the update bot or partially covered by the update bot, then you've only got this little slice that isn't ready. So that's pretty good. And I'll even show you just real quick the actual website, because actually I'm going to reload it because it does a little bounce. It's got some real nice, see how that does? And fun. And you can filter it different ways. So I did that to get the stats for that slide, but essentially you can tell even from mousing over it, it'll even show you what's explicitly compatible and what has different problems. So probably when you actually come to this page and you want to look at these things and figure out what the projects are, you want to actually filter out, you know, you want to go to the ones that are not compatible and submit those, you know, and see the breakdown of that. It's a great site. Acquia did a great service for all of us by providing that. And I think it's really, really awesome. And certainly it helped me with at least this one slide, but it actually helped me a lot. So this whole process is just like, there's all this code out there and you're just trying to find a couple of lines of code that are stopping you from using this in your project. So how do you find it? The projects are on Drupal.org. It's where you're like, okay, it's on GitHub or whatever. I mean, that's true for a lot of projects. Things are on GitHub or Drupal uses its own GitLab instance, and it uses this Drupal.org site, which has been around since the very early days, tracking people's contributions. Back in the day when they used to actually work on the code by emailing each other patch files as attachments. So then this website grew up in a way that helps to, in a public facing way on the web, so that you have these issue queues with people talking to each other back and forth, leaving comments, and they may leave patches, and those patches are publicly accessible. And when they're on Drupal.org, you can use that right away in your project. You can just tell Composer, install this module and go get this patch, and boom, it's amazing. So this is just, I'm not going to actually follow these links. I just picked a rando project that is not here on the issue page. Actually, you know what? I did bring it up and I'm gonna go to it because here's the actual project page and here's how you find the issues, right? You come to the project page and then over in the sidebar, issues. And you're gonna go and don't even bother looking at all the issues, just look at the open issues. There's 149 open issues. And that's going to bring you from the project page to the issues page. And here it is, right at who wrote that patch? The update bot, right? Here is the project update bot. So it's the status, it needs review, it has generated a patch, and the patch looks like that. And it's not much. In fact, all you have to do is put core version requirement, either version 8 or version 9. I think there's best practices say now a little bit, because you're not actually compatible with Drupal 8 before 8.8. If you have this in your info.yaml file, you will get a problem if you do that, because prior to 8.7.7, it didn't exist at all. And the other thing that goes away, which should have a minus in front of it here in the diff, it should have a minus in the patch file to say that this line should actually be removed, core 8.x. That is no longer going to be needed in Drupal 8. Never be needed again in the future. That line can go. So anyway, that's the whole patch. It seems like it shouldn't be that hard to apply it. And maybe we'll come back here because there isn't really an issue fork yet. There's just a patch. So I can show you guys when we get to I'll show you at least that much of a live demo. Let's go back to the slides. I've already showed you all three of these things. The historic way in a composer-based PHP project. So if it's a tarball-based project, you're out of luck. You have to manage your patches another way. And in the old days, and I remember working at agencies where there might be like 50 patches, and every time you update Drupal 7 site, you've got to apply all of those patches. So you just keep them in a patches folder, and you remember to make that part of your manual workflow every time you apply the updates. We used to do that with Drush, and break until you applied all those patches, and you would have to go through one by one and actually apply them the old-fashioned way by using the patch command line utility, which is the counterpoint to the diff utility. So what that does is it takes a patch file and an existing file, and it applies all the changes in the patch file to bring it up to the target state of what the new thing was that you were getting the diff between. Wonderful that we don't have to do that anymore thanks to Composer patches, and I will show you how that. C.W. Egan's. It's probably pronounced C.W. Egan's. I have heard people say Quegan's. I believe that is acceptable, but it is probably not. I think the guy's name, he probably has two first initials. This is him. That's C.W. Egan's on GitHub. And hey, happy little guy from Meridian, Indiana. And he's done a lot of good for the PHP community by providing composer patches. PHP composer-based PHP project, and you can have a patch in a local file like we used to keep them in a patches directory, or you can have a patch in a somewhere online that you're fairly certain will not go away. So don't take a patch from some fly-by-night blog that might go away, but if it's in the issue queue, right, if it's back here on Drupal.org, and you've got this link that goes to something which is just plain text and it's a patch, using, it's got basically, you read the README. It's not that hard. You need to install, first you composer require CW Egan / composer - patches, and then you make a little bit of an edit to your composer JSON to add like a patch wherever you want it. This is a patch to Drupal core, and it's got it tells you what you're patching, and then you put in a little bit of like a note why it's patching it. That's your little note to yourself. And then this is where it's getting the patch from. And lo and behold, it's at www.drupal.org, and it's straight out of an issue queue. I mean, you can't really tell because it goes files, not issues. But if we went back to this, we would see this is like project, nice menus, issues, and a number. Then this is actually Drupal.org files, issues, date, blah, blah. That's just some of the past, you know, for example, this says project nice menus issues, but over here on the project page, it's like, or it says project issues nice menus. I don't know why some of them are in a different order. If it were up to me, I would make all of the routing very standardized for all of those things. But you must remember that Drupal.org has been kind of evolving gradually over the years since things were completely different than they are now. So different things happen at different times for different reasons. I won't second guess any of that. Just get to know it. This is how you do. If you want to succeed as a Drupal developer, you don't fight the weirdness. You just embrace the weirdness. You get to know it, how it evolved a certain way, and you do it that way, and you'll be happier than trying to bring some kind of preconceived notion of how it ought to make sense, because that's a path to some frustration. So there's a README on GitHub. I showed you that. You apply the patch. You can use a path to a local patch file or a URL for a remote patch file, and I got that far. And then it says reinstall patch project. This is how you apply the patch. So the composer.json is just a recipe for what you're going to install. And when you go back and you reinstall that package that you said you wanted to patch, it's going to say, oh, I've detected that there's a patch for it, so I'm going to uninstall it so that I can download it and patch it and automatically applied just because you edited the composer JSON. You need to rebuild your project. And if you're following modern best practices, you probably rebuild your project every time you deploy to dev or stage. And you maybe even rebuild it sometimes just in your own local environment. You certainly want to rebuild it when you are sending it to production. Just to make sure that it can build, right? Not to make sure there isn't a problem in your composer JSON that's going to cause you a problem in the future. These days of your Git repo, causing you problems in the future. You want to actually test it, test the build every time, build and deploy, build, test, and deploy, right? So that's what this is good for. But there is a catch-22. And I was very dismayed to discover this. But luckily, help is already on the way. So it's, as I said, and I guess I already described this in some. The core version requirement line in your info.yaml, before Drupal 8.7.7, it would say core 8.x. Now it says core version requirement, caret 8.8, pipe, caret 9, or 9.0 or whatever. This is a semantic versioning string. So what it means, the two pipes next to each other in the middle, the two straight up and down lines are a logical OR. You're already familiar with seeing a logical OR represented in this fashion. The thing to know is that the numbers on either side are using a semantic versioning convention. So it means basically not less than 8.8, right, is what that little caret means, but also up to and including anything beginning with 8, but not including 9, which is why you have to also put the OR and have a separate identifier for 9. And nowadays, 8, 9, and 10 all at once. It won't be compatible with Drupal 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, blast off, you know, like it's not compatible with the things from the past. But now that we're using a standard that is gonna be the same going forward, it is totally possible to have the same module installable in all of these things, which is why we're starting to move away in the version numbering system away from the ones in the old days. 1.0 or, you know, like 7.x-4.3 or whatever, you know, like dash alpha. This is kind of going away for new projects that are keeping up with the latest developments. They're switching. Their latest releases are coming out with semantic versioning. They're starting with new 1.0.0, and it's going to be, or if they've got older versions, then they're coming out with 4.0.0, and they'll follow on out. And what that means, that's a big improvement over the old way, is you'll know if they use it correctly, you'll know whether it breaks any backward compatibility with any APIs, because it won't if it's the smallest number, the furthest out, the third number, or if it's the middle number, it won't break any. And if it changes the first number, then you know it will break things. And you know that the API will already be documented and all the deprecations will. Oh, that's all well and good if you've got a Drupal 8 project and you're running in Drupal 8 the upgrade status module and the upgrade rector module to test for these Drupal 9 deprecations. You can apply a patch that changes this line in a Drupal 8 project because Drupal 8 is able to download it and patch it, but Drupal 9 cannot apply that patch. Patch to core version requirement, but Drupal 9 will not even select it for installation. And the workaround is to use something called issue forks. Issue forks are relatively new on Drupal.org. They came out, it says here on the screen that they were scheduled for general availability on all projects on November 10th, 2020. So it's a relatively recent development and people are just getting used to it. But I think it's kind of amazing that I thought this was going to be such a short presentation, but it actually is going to be an hour and there's no time for questions because I talk so much. Guys, I will definitely get that under control with my future lunch and learns. I'll figure out a way. I got to figure out a way. But anyway, so their issue forks. It's a direct connection between an issue queue and git.drupalcode.org, and you can open a merge request on Drupal GitLab directly from the issue and add it to Composer JSON as an alternate repository. The prerequisites. I got 10 minutes left, but this is kind of a lot. I was whatever. Anyway, you need to create an account on Drupal.org. You should probably already have one if you're working with Drupal, or even if you're thinking about working with Drupal, go ahead and make one and go ahead and populate your profile with the same type of stuff. Maybe not everything that's in your LinkedIn profile, but you'll see. You can put where you work, especially if you're doing web design. You can put links to websites that you've worked on. And you can definitely, as you start, once you've got that account, if you are, contributing patches and they actually get contributed, you get credit and it shows up in your profile. All this stuff is great. The more involved you get with the open source stuff, the more people will be able to come to your profile and see that you're an active open source developer in the Drupal community. And it helps you, like, it actually, a lot of employers give that quite a bit of weight. But first thing you need to do is you need to set up your Drupal.org account, and then you need to set up Git authentication for Drupal.org. That's something that I guess I should just make these slides available for you guys because I'm not going to walk you through it right now because I've already set up mine. But it's pretty important. It's got the instructions on Drupal.org. When you logged into your account, there will be a link to this saying, hey, you probably want to set this up, and it'll take you to this, Get authentication for Drupal.org projects. And then you'll need to set up a local development environment. At a minimum, you'll need Git and some kind of text editor or IDE. You should also have tools like PHPCS. You should have a local Drupal 8 project that you're trying to upgrade to Drupal 9. Those are the prereqs. This is the process. If you're upgrading a Drupal 8 site, don't skip steps. So I actually just answered a question on Stack Exchange today that somebody said, oh, I'm having trouble with the upgrade of core 8.9 to 9.2. And I said, well, before you come to us with the Composer issue, make sure. Just said they were using Composer 1. This is something you'd want to upgrade from Composer 1 to Composer 2. There's documentation on that. I'll make this link available to you so it's got all this stuff kind of in one place. How to prepare your site for Composer 2. There's a lot to it. I have no time to go through this. It's a lot. Very, very good detailed instructions. And you need to do it. You really need to do it. There's going to be certain packages that you need to get rid of that are not going to be compatible with Composer 1. And you want And then you install the upgrade status module, and then you go to the official Drupal docs on upgrading a Drupal 8 site to Drupal 9, and it tells you exactly how to do it step by step. And I gave a little bit more extra advice that's just specific to this one person's. But this is overall, this is the last step. You're gonna, once everything is 100% ready and the upgrade status module says you're good to go, then you're gonna do all this stuff. And we're back in the slide. So don't skip any steps. And then just before that last step, you're going to be doing the thing with the upgrade status module. You identify the Drupal 9 incompatible project with the upgrade status module. You click on issues to go to the issue queue. You look for an issue called automated Drupal 9 compatibility fixes if it exists. In some cases, the update bot hasn't gotten there yet, but other people have. So it may be an issue queue, like there's an issue with a different name, but or fix Drupal 9 deprecation, something like that. You'll find it, and probably the patch is already out there. And what you need to do is first you apply that patch to your Drupal 8 project using C.W. Egan's Composer patches, right? And you test it with the upgrade status module, and if it says that's okay, and it says that it's Drupal 9 compatible, then if the problem doesn't, is this Drupal 9 compatible in the info.yaml, you can use Composer patches to apply that to your, and the good thing about that is, if they've already updated that one line, then you don't have to pin it to this version forever and ever. What you can do is you can have the patch apply to the latest version, and then when they come out with a new version, someone will re-roll that patch, make it available, and you'll make a very tiny minor change to your Composer JSON to apply the new patch automatically. Goes beyond what's patched. It'll break, you'll go back and check it, you'll be like, okay, we need to re-roll the patch, it's not a big deal. You put that patch up there, you'll get credit for it in your Drupal.org account, in your profile, and you can use it again. But if you can't, because of the one line in the info.yaml, the upgrade status, then you're going to want to do this thing. You're going to click the green button to create an issue fork. And let's see, I don't know if I'm going to, there's so many steps here at the well, I can't believe there's 3 minutes left to go through all this. I'm so leisurely. I should have really rushed through the other slides and left more time for Q&A at the end. Maybe I'll give this talk again and rush it, so we'll have more Q&A. And I'll do it with a real kind of walkthrough. But what I'm trying to say is over here on the actual, it says, oh, upgrades, and nobody's logged in, right? And we will see that now there's a green button. Whoa, and it says create issue fork. And isn't that nice? You already know that there's a patch up here, and now you can create an issue fork. And if you click it, which I may as well go ahead and do, I picked this one to do a live demo and I left it because I'm not actually using it. I found this one just at random by using the upgrade status. No, it in here. It was near the top when I went to the ones that weren't. There it is. Nice menus 1x.dev, and you can use that to find your way. That link will go to the release. It actually doesn't go to the project. This maybe goes to the project. No, these links are very circular. They don't actually take you to the project, but you use this anyway to find the string, which is the project identifier, nice underscore. To go to Drupal.org/project/whatever that string is, nice menus, and that's where you put it. So that's how you find the issue queues and stuff in the first place. First you find the project page, then you find the issue queues, then you're here and you can create the issue fork. And if I mash that button, it says creating, bum, 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 completing issue fork. And I have push access because I'm the one that done created it. And there it is. They just created a fork. This is a fork of project on GitLab, on Drupal's GitLab. And if you click show commands, it's going to show you commands. You can actually click here to copy that to the clipboard. And if I want to go to I'll just see if I can, let me see if I can do this. This will be very interesting. Can I make a new one? Yeah, I can make a new one. I'm going to close these out and I'm going to hit this so I get a new window that doesn't have my other stuff in it. And then I'm going to bring one of these to the front and just show you what it looks like to make a new repo. So let's say I go repos and I'm in here. So I'm going to say take nice menus. Take is a weird command that is perhaps Z shell specific, and all it does is make that directory and CD into that directory at the same time. So now I got an empty directory where I can work on this, and all I got to do is paste that code that I grabbed from the other place. And actually, I can't do it yet because there's a first step, version control instructions. So see where it says start with. That's very important. And in order to do this, you have to have your SSH keys set up with Drupal.org so that you can actually do this. I don't know if I have that on this computer, so I'm going to try it. Hold on, it's show commands. I'm going to do a new, where is that? Version control instructions, new tab. And I'm going to do right here, git clone. Oh, look, it says GPS should work, I think. Let's see. Yes, it worked because I used an HTTPS remote. I prefer to use an SSH remote. And if you use Git, you know why. And if you don't use Git, then what are you doing watching this? Because you need to use Git to do the issue fork thing. So here's the thing. I got the 7x branch, which is crazy. Let's see, Git branch. Gosh, that's the only one I checked out. So I have to go back to the not 1x. And that's, I don't think at this point, like if I say show, it's going to tell me a different way to git clone it. I have already git cloned it. So I just have to know that the branch is called 8-x1.x. So I used the wrong, but I believe if I go git checkout, I put that, then it should know. Now that I have that, I can go back to here and I can use add and fetch this issue forks repository. And there it is. This is an issue fork. It's gonna probably say I can't do it. Let's see if I can do it. I could not read from the remote repository because I don't have my Git stuff set up. But anyway, so I should be wrapping it up. I should go and do my, it's good that I can't do the entire thing. And that gives you an idea of where we're at. And I'll also just type code to launch VS Code so you can see what the repository looks like that just has nothing in it except for this module, the nice menus module. Yes, I trust the authors. And I'm going to look at info.yaml, and lo and behold, I want to take out that line and I want to put in, this is really the only thing I'm going to version requirement. And it's going to be that string I told you about before, which is I could use just like the one up above me. I'm going to use the single quotes. I'm not sure what's the difference in YAML. I don't think there really is, but maybe there is. And the caret 8.0 double pipe caret Oh, no, no, not 8.0. Okay, it's going to be 9.0. I work reliably with 8.7. It certainly won't work with 8.6 or below. And I save that. I probably would want to, take out some white space or something. But that is pretty much the entire change that you need to make that module Drupal 9 compatible. And then I should be able to git push it, right? And the this is, okay, check out this branch or push your current local branch. Once I've checked out the branch, which I need to get in a git clone of the project using the version control instructions, then you add and fetch the issue forks repository. Then you check out this branch, which is specific to the issue queue, right? And it's even got the number in it of the issue queue. And then you use that code to check out the branch, and then you make your changes in that branch, and you can push your current local branch back up to here. And at that point, you can make a merge request. You can use that issue fork to, let's take a quick look at it. I feel like maybe I needed to do more slides for that part, because I'm down here at the end. In a terminal, git clone the repo, git fetch the issue fork branch, copy and paste code from the patched module to the issue fork. In some cases, this is enough for compatibility. In other cases, there are a few more issues flagged by rector and/or PHPCS, which you're going to need to fix manually. Apply all the fixes, commit the changes, and git push upstream to the issue fork. And then you can make your projects. I'm going to go back because I didn't mean to click on that. And actually, I can show you an example of that, which is separate from this. Since I'm logged in as myself, I can go into my dashboard or my account or whatever, and go to my issues. And that will, I'll show you just real briefly. This is how you can really kind of dress up your Drupal.org profile. If it doesn't look like this, things did cost me a little bit of money that I donated to be a member of the Drupal Association and to support Drupal, because I make money off Drupal, so I feel okay tipping them out from time to time. So I got those badges from giving money. The rest of this stuff is all free, and it can help you out when you're looking for a job. People find out, what issues you are credited with fixing in the last year and what projects you have contributed to and stuff like that. And I go to my issues now, my more recent ones, I just have a whole Drupal 9 compatibility fixes. This is the one at the top. I just made one for this. It doesn't actually have my instructions in it, so I want to find one that does, which is going to be presumably one that I'm actually using in my current project, which is simple redirect. This is a terrible module. I think the redirect module, apologies if anyone in the audience worked on this module. It's an okay module, but it is complete redirect, which does the same stuff and is fully supported and fully Drupal 9 compatible and doesn't have the same problems as this one. But if you look down here, this is what I made for my issue fork. It's a merge request on GitLab. But what I did was I put the instructions in there on how to use this issue fork. Even if nobody ever comes along, it's an orphan project. Nobody's maintaining it. Nobody's ever going to merge this code. So always have this transitional package provided by this issue fork. And the way you do it is to add the issue fork as a composer repository here. And I didn't put that on a slide. Lord knows why I didn't put the Meteor stuff on a slide of its own. Maybe I thought I was gonna have time to do a live demo. And then basically what you're doing is you're setting up a new repository for Drupal/simple redirect. It's no longer going to look for it in the Drupal repository with all the other Drupal modules. To exclude Drupal simple redirect so that it doesn't see later on that it's got a better version and try to obliterate the one that you got from the patch. You're not even going to have Drupal look for it as part of its project space. And then that's in your composer.json. You have to manually edit that. And then you can either say composer require yada yada, which is basically so colon something starting with dev, which is dev 3148805 automated Drupal 9. And that corresponds to the actual, look, 3148805 up there, and the name of our issue fork and the name of the branch, all of this stuff. So this branch, Composer is able to use that because I redefined the, and specifically this branch. And the way Composer knows that it's a dev branch is I started it with dev dash and then the name of the branch. So it's going to get it that way. And you can say composer require, and you have to use the exact string this kind of wacky way, which is why I provide it in the README, because it's not intuitive. Or you can actually manually add the requirement to composer.json and say require Drupal simple redirect stuff, the number and the little tagline after that. And after that, if you do it by adding it to composer.json, you still need to either require or update that package from the command line with Composer, or it won't alter the files that are actually installed in your project. So that is as close as we're going to get to a full demo. And I'll go back to the slides, wrap up, and open it for questions. But that's how, yeah, you test your instructions by pasting. Be certain to remove the Composer patches patch at this time. It's no longer needed. And that is important because that patch is not going to apply the same identical changes that you have in the issue fork. It's going to break, it's going to fail with an error. And depending on how you have your composer.json set up, that could break your continuous integration pipeline, because if you have it set up to exit with error and to exit on a patch failure, which is the best practice, then you need to get that out of there after you get. If it does not work, there is one last step, and this is it. I'm 12 minutes over. We're going to have a very short Q&A, but this is generating a valid composer.json. If you try to install it, at this point, you'll see an error that says no valid composer.json file was found. Generate a new composer.json. The way I've been doing it, there's more than one way, but the way I've been doing it is, say the package is called Drupal/foo, and the version, which you'll find that out from looking at the project page and at the available release pages. I kind of went straight to the issue queues. I didn't show you the releases, but you'll find out what release you're working with and what that string is. You'll say composer show. You actually can get all this stuff also out of your composer.json, or at worst, if you've got an earlier version specified in the composer.json with version up to but not including, then you may actually have a newer version. So you may need to look in your composer.lock file to figure out what one is actually installed. But there's going to be some JSON somewhere in your composer configuration that will tell you exactly what this is. And you're going to say composer show -a. I don't know if I can do that because over here it's not a composer project. I would have to do it oddly. I can't really do it because I've only used this for client projects. Sorry. Composer shows stuff about what packages are in it, even though it probably wouldn't give away any kind of trade secrets, but I just can't do it. Sorry, guys. I will make a special repo that's just for demoing. And what it's going to do is it's going to generate a composer.json that you can use, but it'll have some extra stuff in it that you want to take out. You want to remove the versions key because you're not going to be using that version. You want to remove the source key, which is telling it, and the path key. You will find all those things in your JSON. I've got to find an example of a composer JSON right here in the nice menus. They have a composer JSON, right? So this is one that really all you need to do is update that line in the info.yaml because they've already got a composer.json. You would be surprised how many of these packages, for some reason or another, you can install them with Composer, but they don't have a composer.json in. It shouldn't work at all. Maybe it's magic. I don't know, but you need to make one on your own. It's going to look kind of like this. When you generate it with Composer Show, it's going to be based on what it gets out of essentially, you know, the same metadata repositories that it's using to generate your Composer lock file. And it's going to have a little bit of extra stuff in there. And I wish I had showed you that too, exactly what stuff to remove. But it's on the slide. It says remove versions. So you'll have a Drupal 8, Drupal 9 transitional project. Any questions? I am only 15 minutes over the time, so I will stick around for some questions. And we can turn on the sound for everybody. Thanks for coming to the talk. Hopefully this is something that is actually useful to a lot of people, especially given the timing. A lot of people are upgrading from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 between now and November, when Drupal 8 support ceases. And more times between now and then, to help as many people as I can that are in that boat, because, you know, and I do think that a lot of the people that are already working for the agencies and whatever, maybe they already did this a long time ago, and that's great too. They don't need my help, but if you guys find yourself in this situation, this is definitely a good walkthrough. Question, Darren?
Yeah, can I get a link to those merge request instructions example that you showed us? You were putting the instructions in a merge request, but you didn't have a slide for it?
Oh, the one where I put it in the Stack Exchange, this one? Or that's for the whole Drupal 9 thing. You're talking about—
it was showing how to set up the repositories where you're excluding one and that, yeah.
How to apply the issue fork, right? That is, you know how I find that, and it's kind of crazy? I will do this for you now, and then I will send you a link. This is just a random one, but issues, they're all like things that I have recently updated, but I will give you this one as a link that shows a sort of a template for how to do it. They're linked to each other, so you can come straight to here, to this number 4. I will copy that link and send it in the Zoom chat, so you can get that on your computer. For goodness sake, meeting controls, here we go. One of these things. This is great. Okay, here we go. Hey, Darren, the slides are available. We're going to do it like this. I'm going to paste my message here, which is a place where you can find one of the comments that has my instructions, my full instructions in it. Lord knows that should really be on a slide. I can revise the slide. Do this again. But yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you add the issue fork. It's got like a link to where I found out was this guy, Benji Fisher. So I did a little bit more verbose version of exactly like bringing it all together to say exactly how to do it. Again, if you don't need to use the issue fork, if you can get by with a patch, that is actually preferable, because when a newer version of the module comes out for Drupal 9, the issue fork is going to be, you're going to be pinned to the old version, right? You're going to need to re-roll that, and you won't get like any kind of a notification patch. Then at least Drupal thinks, okay, this is version whatever, and a new version is available. I know there's a new version available. And then it'll say, okay, there's an upgrade available. You upgraded, it breaks, and then you re-roll the patch and reapply it. That's actually kind of better, because the issue fork is locking you to this moment in time, frozen in amber for all eternity, where the code is in exactly this state. Yeah. And let's see what else we got. lunch and learn on just issue forks. Believe it or not, that's what this was supposed to be. And I spent so much time talking about the soft stuff at the beginning and just taking my time and being leisurely. So this was supposed to be mostly about just issue forks. And also, yes, Lando rocks. Yes, 8, pipe 9. That is correct. That was what Rector was recommending initially. I have seen so many issue practices to put 8.8 for the reason that I already mentioned, which is that it will break on 8.0, 8.2, 8.4, 8.6, or 8.7 point anything before 877, which is when that first appeared, the core version requirement. If it's before that, it will break and you will get a white screen of death and your site will be no more. So you cannot just put 8 pipe 9 if there's any chance that anyone is going to be running the site on an earlier version of 8. Because we're all on 8, 9, whatever, the very latest version, right? We're all on that all the time. There's no reason not to update to the latest version of Drupal 8. Nothing breaks. Things are marked for deprecation, but they don't take them away, right? They don't take them away until you go to 9.2. Now you're going to go straight to 9.2. There's no point going to 9.0. In fact, just only trouble can happen if you do that. So go to the most, from the most stable and mature 8.9, most recent 9.2 point whatever. And that's the path to do it. And that's all the questions in the chat. So I'm going to minimize that and look at your faces again. I'm going to make the grid bigger so I can see if there's anybody else still participating who has any questions for me, or you want to talk, you want to turn on the sound. I guess I can.
Hello, how are you, March?
Esaya, yes, what is your question?
I'm good. Yeah, man, I just want to ask, is it possible to jump from Drupal 7 to Drupal 9 straight?
No, not in the same way as you can jump from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 straight. What you will have to do is called a migration, and it is the same process that you would go through to get a WordPress site into Drupal, or to get some other type of site that maybe isn't even a CMS at all. No, it could be on any kind of platform. It could be a Python Django site, or like ASP.NET, like, you know, whatever you built it on, Java, Spring Boot, MVC, something different, completely different from Drupal, but it's got a database behind it. So what you have to do is you have to identify all of the content in that database and think about what that will mean when it comes into Drupal in terms of Drupal content type. Lift if you're coming from a non-Drupal to a Drupal, right? Because at least if you're going from Drupal 7 straight to Drupal 9, then at least it's already Drupal, its content types, their entities, they're similar. Everything is, you know, kind of the same concepts, but there were a lot of breaking changes between 7 and 8. Many more so than there were between 8 and 9. And as a result, you cannot do the upgrade in place. You have to build a Drupal 8 site and migrating from 7 to 8. And if you want to find documentation on how to migrate from Drupal 7 directly to Drupal 9, your best source of documentation is documentation on how to migrate from 7 to 8, because it's going to be the exact same process, really the same process. It's a process of identifying what's in the old database and being able to extract, transform, and load it into the new database. And ways you can do it with, like, actually straight database SQL connections and like transforming things that way. You can use Drupal modules, like I've seen people, well, the best way is to use the Migrate API. And that is that's the recommended way. It's basically you configure what all those transformations are going to be in a bunch of YAML files. And then you run the migration and you can reverse it and YAML files until you get all of the transformations from what state the data is in Drupal 7, and make sure that it lands in the right state in Drupal 9. And that's the only way that you can do it. The documentation is out there. It's all written as 7 to 8 documentation, but all of the same concepts will apply to 7 to 9 migrations. And actually, this guy Mauricio is the best. Mauricio Dinarte is the best and Drupal migrations. I can try and find a link to one of his trainings, but in the meantime, I know on this shelf back here, I have a book that he recommended up there next to my Donald Knuth, and this is the Data Warehouse ETL Toolkit. So that is why I'm using the term extract, transform, and load. It's ETL. It actually is kind of like a database lingo to say it that way, but that's what you have to do. Same mess that you faced getting it from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, which is why so many people postponed that. Hopefully, just the whole process is much more well-known and mature now, and it'll just be easier for you to implement it. But it's a heavier lift, and there's no sugarcoating that. I wish I had better news for you. Is any other question?
I explained very well. And then the other question, I heard you say you can also migrate from WordPress to Drupal as well.
You can migrate from anything. You can migrate data in any form into Drupal. So the process of doing it from WordPress is that WordPress has stuff stored in a database, and it doesn't have it stored in remotely the same way that Drupal is going to store it. And you're going to need to look at the tables in that database, figure out what parts correspond to what things in Drupal, and build that stuff in Drupal in such a way that you can extract the salient information into what it needs to be and load it into the new database. So I believe, it's Migrate API. That's what you want to look up. It will work the same way for Drupal 7 to 9 or for WordPress to Drupal 9. Don't migrate anything to Drupal 8 at this point. It would be madness. Don't do that.
Okay, thank you. I get it.
All right. Well, if that's it, I'm gonna share my Drupal 9 is coming. Everybody just be prepared. 9 is coming. That's the end of my talk.
Nice t-shirt.
Thank you.
That's a pretty good t-shirt.
Yes. My friend Jay Hogue designed it, but it was my idea. It was an agency that I used to work at. We sort of collaborated on that one.
Right on.
They always made joke t-shirts to wear to DrupalCon every year, and it was the year last final episode of Game of Thrones was it was either the same week or it was the next week or the week before. So everybody was talking about it, and I was like, we will never be able to make this joke again. It won't ever make sense again. We have to make this joke. It's perfect.
Well, Drupal 9 is way better than last season of Game of Thrones. I mean,
yeah, I shared, I did get really into Game of Thrones initially, and then I read all the books, which in some ways were better than the TV show at first, but then I feel like he really did lose his way, and then the show had to finish it for him. And whew, God bless that guy for making all that money, though. What a, that's talk about Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, wow, he really did a great thing.
Write the final book twice, because he actually wrote the final book.
Mm-hmm.
His system crashed. He didn't have any backups. He lost the entire book.
Really?
Yes. From his outlines.
What I have heard about George R.R. Martin, George Railroad Martin, is that he still uses a very, very old computer, and he keeps it unplugged from the internet so nobody can steal his stuff. Yeah, and he still maybe uses DOS, like MS-DOS. Is that correct?
He's on a Mac actually, but yeah. It's
Yeah,
a very
but he
old
might,
ancient
that might
Mac.
mean that he gets to use WordPerfect, which is actually kind of cool. But other than that, like, it's probably not your best.
He's a bit of a what?
I can see
To
Ty
be fair.
Travis, you were muted, but now you're not. So
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thanks for this presentation. This has really been helpful. I think a lot of us are probably been kind of holding back on upgrading to Drupal 9. I have a smaller site, did a preliminary upgrade, everything broke, and considering how to do it.
you got to do it.
Obviously,
I encourage you
yeah.
to do it before November. And my experience with Drupal 9 was similar to yours. I was working at an agency when Drupal 9 came out, and they only let me work on Drupal 7 projects. I was doing ongoing maintenance for Drupal 7 projects. So in order to get the Drupal 9 experience, I actually couldn't stay with them. And I 6 month, I knew that wasn't going to last either. And they told me they wouldn't hire me full time after that. And true to their word, they didn't. But at least I got to launch 3 websites, Drupal 8 websites with them, and get that experience under my belt and turn that around and turn that into another short term. I hopped and did some contracts for a little while, short term contracts. And that's kind of how I found my way to Esteemed. So it can actually be a really painless to build a new. You won't find, the only thing that you'll miss maybe is if you rely on a very specific contributed module, because everything in core comes along for the ride. There is no problem upgrading Drupal core from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9, none whatsoever. The problem is in your custom code, if you've written custom themes and modules, and to some degree in the contributed code, depending on what themes and modules you're using. So if upgrade status module and identifying the deprecations first, of course, everything broke. But if you run that first, you will probably find that you've got 50 lines of code here and there scattered throughout your project that need to change.
Okay.
And they'll be like clearly labeled. And then you'll run the upgrade and it'll still break. And you'll be like, whoa, there's a white screen of death. And you'll go back and look at the actual, the Drupal watchdog. It'll probably tell you the line in the file that is causing the thing that's tripping something up that's a deprecation that Rector maybe didn't catch, right? And those are very rare. I went through my progress with my thing. I upgraded. I was probably at like 88%, like 88% compatibility with the Drupal upgrade status module when I started to encounter the issue forks problem that I couldn't. Then I made I think 14 or 15 issue forks, which was kind of a lot, but this is a very special, weird old project. And it used a lot of weird old modules that I wasn't sure whether or not I could get rid of them. So I kept them around just in case. I didn't want anything to break. And I'm going through now and I'm taking away more stuff, but I wanted to bring everything along for the ride to Drupal 9. And I got it after those, I got it to like 99%. Did some other tweaks to get it to 100%, brought it over and it still crashed. And at that point, there were maybe 2 or 3 remaining errors that were very easy to find in the logs saying exactly what the problem was. And in those cases, I was able to go back. There are things that the Rector module didn't automatically say to fix, but they were all really quick and easy to fix. And I fixed them and I contributed those back upstream in there. If there was an issue queue for it, I added it queue. In at least one case, I made one that was for, and I could find that also in if I'm still sharing my screen, I can find that in my history. There was one, if I go to my issues, I mean, like all this stuff is from like, okay, it's from anything after, yeah, here, 3 weeks, last 3 weeks, all this stuff. Issue forks for Drupal 9 compatibility. And then there were just a couple of things that I fixed after that. I think it's this one. No, that's the upgrade status module. And hold on, didn't want to do that one. Did I go too fast? I went too fast. But anyway, it wasn't too bad. And entity print, this is the one. It's a bug report. We need the entity print module. It is a deal breaker, and it's a great little module. That's the thing that I saw in the logs, and I was able to figure it out by Googling that and finding other projects that had patched the same deprecation.
Yeah, there you go.
And generating, this is the whole patch, you know.
Oh, there you go. Quick. Nice.
So that's the stuff that I had to do after I got the robots stopped helping me. But it wasn't too bad. And, you know, they were like 84% or something like that before I started to get into the issue forks. So just using patches, I got it to like 84% compatible. And then I got it most of the way to 100 just with the issue forks. And then there were just 3 of these type of things that I had to patch manually.
Cool.
Not too bad. I mean, especially
full
migration, which I've never had to do. And again, I had the experience, I had a Drupal 9 site from scratch, and that gave me some confidence to be like, Drupal 9's not scary. It really is just like Drupal 8. The only thing that's scary about it is we like to hold on to the things that are familiar and comfortable that we already know. And so we didn't want to learn Drupal 8 in the first place. And we had no choice but to learn it. And now we kind of don't want to learn anything new. We're like, I already had the spinach, you know. You get to have that after you suffered through Drupal 7 and 8, you know, like you get to come to like basically something that's very feature complete and stable. And the only thing that's missing is some modules in the contrib space are not ready, largely because they're unmaintained. And you can patch those and make them, like I say, it's a transitional package. So it's not guaranteed that all the problems are actually resolved, but it's approved, you know, like, and you put that thing in there that says, go ahead and install it. Well, now it installs. There may still be some lines of code in there that cause a white screen of death crash. And if they do, they will lead you to something that looks a lot like this in most cases. And probably in some cases, hundreds of lines of code and some horrible nightmare, but those modules are not the ones you want to be using anyway. You kind of can tell them apart. You know, the ones that already are Drupal 9 compatible. There's 25,000 sites using this module. And then you go to the other one and it says, there's 24 sites using this module. It doesn't have a stable release candidate. You know, it's like, So when you do your initial site build, rather than just like grabbing for any module that looks like it might do something, you know, that stops you from thinking or having to write anything original, right? Because like you learn the APIs, you can write a simple module and get your business logic done with uses in core already. That gets you a lot of the way there if you want to use that monster. But there's the entity API, and you can write your own queries. So yeah, I mean, you can get yourself. It comes down to how well architectured is the project in the first place, and is it really a mess? Is it really unmaintained? Then you're going to have more trouble updating it to Drupal 9. But if it's a pretty well architected project, it's pretty well maintained, it should be pretty easy.